Okay, so I am here with Heather Miller, fourth grade teacher at Erickson Elementary. And how many years have you been teaching now?
This would be my 15th year, but I
Okay.
took 2 years off for my kids, so
Okay.
technically 13.
Okay. Okay.
I have to count.
I know,
count
right?
myself.
Okay, so we'll just get into it. The first question is, how have students changed over time, and what are their current needs?
So, when thinking about this question, there have been, I think, so many ways that I have seen kids change over the course of my experience. A lot of good ways, a lot of ways that increase their needs. The first thing that I was thinking of is they truly, I feel like they have a lot more background knowledge than they actually used to. Because I feel like their access to technology, their access to the internet, their access to the Discovery Channel and all those different things, I feel like has given them so much more background knowledge in those ways.
Okay.
They see a lot more than I think they ever used to.
Yeah. Which is really interesting, so not to jump in, but like, because we're learning right now about how the prior knowledge like really influences like their learning and everything. Because then they can make the connection.
And that's a huge piece of the science of reading, which is kind of being put in the forefront right now, is about how important that background and prior knowledge really is, so they can make those connections. So I think that that's something that I didn't really expect to think about, but when I really started thinking about it, I feel like they do have a lot more knowledge because they watch so much more, and
they do.
And they see things being spread, and they think, whether that's a positive or negative sometimes, with, like social media, etc. But they do have a lot more access to those things than I think they ever used to.
Yeah, that's really
in the beginning.
Interesting to think about. Yeah, because I mean, now they have like everything at their fingertips. But then, like you said, there's like some misconceptions that you're gonna have to like dispel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. I mean, even like my son, when we're at home talking about something, and he just turned 8, and he'll ask a question, and if I don't know, I'm like, well, let's ask Alexa, or I can Google it on my phone. Anywhere we have access to that information, and I can access it and discuss it with him, or he can look it up and access it. It's not like we have to wait to go to the library to look it up in an encyclopedia or something. So a lot of those answers are a lot easier to access than they ever used to be. I also feel like they need feedback so much more immediately than they ever have. And I also feel like that has to do with the technology, but that's just my opinion.
I could see that.
I think because they're so used to, even like the TikTok videos and Instagram Reels and all those things, everything's, if it doesn't catch my attention in 20 seconds, I'm scrolling. I'm scrolling constantly. So I feel like if they don't understand something, teaching that perseverance, I think, has been a lot more challenging than it was in the beginning when I first started teaching, because they aren't as used to having to push through. Even if they're bored, working through that boredom, working through that, I just need to wait it out, or find something else to do, get a book, or, all those pieces. I just feel like that's also something I've noticed, which is
interesting.
I've had to adjust some of my methods because of that, to make sure that they're still engaged than they were before. And then the other one that I was thinking about was, I personally feel like they're a lot busier outside of school than I've ever seen kids lately. And maybe it's been many years, so maybe I just don't remember that 15 years ago. But there's a lot of kids that have activities or sports 4 or 5 days a week. So trying to balance those expectations between school and home, I think, is also kind of a newer challenge. More recently.
And I wonder if that also like plays into like something like further on down the list that I will ask, but the community that you're teaching in, and like how I guess what's available to them
and accessible.
So I guess maybe that's like
in the community we're in, they're able to
specific to this.
Most students, or I shouldn't even say that, maybe they're just many students in my experience have access to a lot of different opportunities, so they can go to dance or go to soccer 5 days a week. They can go to tournaments in other states. They can do a lot of those
Which I guess
things.
just creates a different set of, I don't want to say problems or challenges, I guess I would say,
challenge,
than other communities that
absolutely
something else. So
I agree.
Really interesting. Good point.
So definitely some positives, some new challenges. I feel like it's ever evolving. Education is never stagnant.
And you, as the teacher, have to kind of gauge that and then adjust yourself too. So okay, great. Okay, so how has the role of teaching changed over time, and what do future teachers need?
So many things. No.
Yes.
I feel like one major shift that I've noticed is, well, I guess two major shifts.
Mm-hmm.
One is I do feel like we have our hands in a lot more pots than we were used to, so to speak. So the amount of data collection, the expectations on interventions, all of those pieces, I think, is a big change over the last 15 or so years.
Yeah.
Earlier on, it seemed like it was just, teaching your curriculum. Obviously, we were still supporting students emotionally, social emotionally, having those discussions, having those lunches with kids, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Teaching a lot of those lessons, being caring and kind. We always have done that. But I think with the addition of, like I said, intervention groups and data tracking and collections and all of those pieces, and then also the increase in SEL expectations of the classroom teacher.
Yeah.
Of teaching actual structured lessons on top of your academic lessons.
Right.
So I think those are some of the shifts, is just adding a little more to that plate.
Okay.
The SEL piece, I feel like we've always done. It's just so much more official and structured lately.
Okay.
Which could be a positive thing,
yeah.
right? Depending on different districts or schools or classrooms. It might be needed,
right?
A necessary change,
right?
That it's more structured and required.
And I guess like what they say, like the hierarchy of needs. Like if they're not coming into the classroom with like those emotional things being met, they're not ready to learn. So I guess it makes sense, but it does add more.
I think that from our community, like our current community, we obviously everywhere you are, you're going to see some kids who have some very intense needs and things that you may not realize about their home life that affect them in the classroom. But I feel like generally speaking, we don't have as many of those.
Okay.
So that shift for us felt different.
Yes.
Because it didn't feel as necessary to be so structured, because I feel like a lot of us were doing what we needed already.
Right.
Whereas I'm sure in a lot of other buildings or districts or communities, it needed to be in the forefront. Yeah. Like before academic, you obviously have to get them in the mental space.
Yes.
To be ready to learn.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of our kids, generally speaking, are pretty ready to learn. Like they come in happy. I mean, I do a Google form every morning. The kids are supposed to be they fill out, and then I check, just telling them, how they're feeling about their day, if there's anything that specifically they want to talk to me about privately.
Right.
So that I know.
Do you feel like you've noticed help with that?